Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Business Bites. I'm Henry. I'm part of Team Chamber. I hope you all had a great New Year's and a good Christmas, a nice break. We're back to it now. I am joined today by Joe Martin from Towergate. Towergate are, of course, valued patron members of the Chamber. Joe is going to be speaking to us today along the lines of workplace trends. So, without any more, I'm going to pass over to Joe, who is going to run this session. Over to you, Joe.
Thanks, Henry. Thank you very much. And thanks for everybody joining us and those watching back on the recording. It's really a privilege to be in front of you going through these findings, what we've had on here. Of course, it is workplace trends that can change the future of the business priorities. But first of all, let me introduce myself. As Henry said, I'm Joe Martin. I'm from Towergate Health and Protection. I'm head of sales and retention within the SME market for there. I lead up a number of teams within that department. We're around the employee benefits and looking after individuals and companies especially. I help them understand trends which are within their business and support their mental health, well-being and protection itself. I'm also a proud father of 4 daughters and a grandson, which arrived just before Christmas. So we had a hectic Christmas and New Year and happily married as well. So lots of generations in my household. So let's go through the details itself, what we're going to go through today. So as I've said before, it is an overview of the workplace trends. A lot of the information which I'll be going through right now will be all based on references from Indeed, Legal and General webinars, and also other reference points as well, which will be throughout the slides on there. We will be sharing a lot of information that actually you might sit there and press the obvious button quite a lot. You might be sitting there going, well, I already know that. But actually what will happen is I'm going to demonstrate a mixture of different trends which are within the workplace itself and really hone in on a particular ones which you can really make a difference to as well. So feel free to enter any of your questions at all in the chat. Henry will go over those at the end and I'll answer all of those. But in the meantime, let's go through this. So what may affect the workplace? So it's a few obvious ones on here for you. Obvious button already pressed. So war, what's going on? We know that there's a number of wars going on at the moment. Since World War II, there's been at least 3 wars at any one time. There are currently 32 theatres of war across the world. And mainly it's down to awareness whether or not you know which ones they are and our locations. So those have always been there itself. It does get cheerier, I promise.
Thank you.
The religion side of things, this is normally a taboo subject, which is past impact on society and also terrorism as well. And there's also public services which are provided. And reportedly, this has always been underfunded and always has an impact on individuals. No more so than the NHS, who was founded back in 1948. And a year after that, they were reportedly underfunded and have been underfunded ever since. So it's a significant impact on the workforce as well, because of course, police, fire, and the teaching can also have an impact on via strikes as well. Politics, I don't need to say more than the fact that that is a very volatile conversation, and also there's a lot of things which can affect the workplace depending on who's in charge. But the great thing with regards to politics as well is that the economy within the UK has been really, really beneficial for setting out trends itself. So there is normally a spike, and then there's normally a drop, and then a spike, and so on and so forth. The reason I put economy and politics right next to it, we've seen in recent times prime ministers have made wrong decisions which have affected the economy dramatically. They've not lasted long. So we know that these kind of things, we can ride out the waves, and they do have an impact on what goes on in the workplace. But to move forward, we need to control the controllables. So all of this will happen. I'm not going to sit here and tell you about, oh, watch out for this and watch out for that. These will happen. We can't do anything for it. So we might as well control the controllables. So some of the things what we know is that happy and positive employees improve businesses' outcomes and can even lead to a 23% increase in profits. There's 17 million working days were lost due to work-related stress and depression and anxiety in 2021 to 2022. People put that down to the pandemic being the primary source of that, but actually the awareness of the work-related stresses and depressions itself has heightened, and that 17 million is likely to increase with the early stats which have coming out of 2023. So other information that we know, we have a working population in the UK of 37 million, and we also have around about 1.2 million vacancies at the moment. So it's clear to us that recruitment and retention issues are increasing in the UK employers. Employees are more aware of their rights to employee benefits, fair pay, and company ethos, and when considering roles to take on. The job market has become more than just salary alone. Recruitment companies have done a very good job at banding everybody's salary and everyone's location. You work in this title, this is your location, this is what you should have. So therefore, the next step down is to make sure that there are employee benefits, the fair pay and company ethos are all in place. And these are all very important. One area that is the big impact on the workplace is the generations in the workforce and the way they react to ever-changing working environments and what are their priorities itself. So just to go through this and remind you what generations look like, we have the baby boomers, saw a booming economy after the World War II with a belief that they could have a job for life. Generation X were the first to grow up with technology and actually were the first ones to decide that actually they didn't want a job for life in the same company if they weren't being treated fairly. Millennials come along, they bridge the gap between the analog and the digital technology and embrace digital technology as their norm. And then the Generation Z, the first true digital natives, the internet generation. Now, there's always a crossover. There's always influence on particular people from peers and parents and media. So not all is set in stone. But this is a good guide to where people sit. The thing to consider as well is that just because they're a millennial doesn't mean that they're going to particularly behave in a particular way, the same as the other generations. This is an overview and an umbrella across those. But why act now? Well, in the past 35 years, the number of 21-year-olds available for work has dropped from 900,000 to 700,000. Now, of course, that's making a shortfall of 200,000 workers entering employment, which is a massive shortfall of it, which needs to be able to plug those gaps. So let's look at the actual working populations at the present. So we have our baby boomers on there. We have a Generation X, millennials, and the Gen Z's just creeping in there. But if we look at 10 years on, well, the baby boomers have already left the workforce. There's an increasing number of Gen X will be contemplating their retirement. And we know historically Gen X already looked at the baby boomers and the stress they go through within a CEO or a directorship role, and have actually opted out of that for a better lifestyle and a better working lifestyle. And then Gen Z, along with the millennial peers, will sit at the heart of the UK's businesses. It's worth noting that Gen Z as a population cohort is significantly smaller than their elder peers. This means retaining employees and minimising staff attrition will hold even greater significance in the coming decades. If you want to future-proof your business, you need to consider Gen Z and their needs when looking at your recruitment and retention strategies. If it's clear that if we take a run up to the next 10 years, then the recruitment and retention gaps can be plugged ahead of the curve. So what are Gen Z? They grew up with social media and the internet. They're more likely to be independently working. There's a rise in entrepreneurial aspirations when it comes to Generation Z. They will avoid working for traditional and major corporations. They've grown up connected to the internet using smart devices and social media. The first mobile phones were likely smartphones. They're often called the more tech-savvy generation because of their experiences with technology. Social media platforms enabled Gen Z to start the entire careers online, where they share and produce content exclusively for online. And they also grew up watching shows on streaming platforms and don't remember a time before the expansion of social media. So what are the traits? Well, there's traits are attitude and outlooks impacted by the social media. They are more influenced by social media than the normal traditional media which is out there. They often prefer to work independently rather than for larger businesses. With the rise in remote working and digital platforms, Gen Z are more interested in freelance work or starting their own companies or even a side hustle. Many consider Gen Z to be one of the most diverse groups of people. Many also consider their views on race, gender, and sexuality to be the most progressive. This is a generation that has very different views on gender. In the UK's 2021 census, Gen Z were more than twice as likely to identify as LGBTQ+ than any other generation. They have more awareness of neurodiversity. There are some generations who have different views from their peers, demonstrating a more independent approach. They have an awareness of social, economical, and environmental issues, but this is via social media and not mainstream media, as I said before. They rarely watch programs on live TV, preferring streaming systems. Highly independent at an early age, and this is because of the working parents. They integrate activism and social justice throughout their daily lives. And although Gen Z feel more valued by their bosses than any other groups, they think companies need to do better when it comes to treating everyone fairly, no matter their gender, race, or religion, relationship status. They also confidence in the future of the businesses they work for. So ultimately, they are global thinkers. They consider the global impact of businesses and the social implications of their lifestyles, and they communicate primarily online. They strongly connected via social media. I've said it once, I've said it a million times. They favor social media over traditional communications. Effective communications increases employer loyalty. We know that already. One thing what might be surprising for you is to learn that 1 in 3 of the Generation Z experience a mental health problem. In most recent research, one of the most significant and concerning findings we identified was Gen Z reported having experienced more mental health relating to stress, anxiety, and depression than any other cohort in the last 12 months. Now, this could be simply because of their life stage or symptomatic of Generation Z's greater awareness and understanding of their own mental health and a greater willingness to reach out for help. So what are the quick fixes? This doesn't mean that meeting should be over WhatsApp, but methods used by Gen Z should be open and honest and straightforward, and they need to harness the knowledge that attention spans are lowering. Diversity and inclusion. Ensure you have a well thought out approach to diversity and inclusion is particularly important to these groups. They'll likely judge employers on this point. Just saying you have equality in the workplace isn't enough anymore. Are minorities represented in your business? Do they have a voice? Is there a significant zero tolerance policy on any discrimination whatsoever? The workplace. Now, there are an increasing number of large organisations mandating a particular set of days in the office. While this works for some, a sizable majority of Generation Z and others will choose their employer based on a range of factors, and this is one of them. However, research shows us that 84% of job hunters said they wouldn't apply for a role if they didn't say they had at least hybrid working. The point being is, of those 84%, only 38% said they would actually take up the hybrid. So having it on show doesn't mean that they're going to take it up. But knowing that it's available for fairness across everyone, if it's right for them, then it's important. Mental health is really, really prominent, as we've already established, and levering employee assistance programs, helplines, counselling, and virtual GPs, and encourage active discussions between employees, managers, and healthcare professionals is a must. You need to reconsider your organisation's benefits approach. A more appropriate approach to people's risk insurance could make an important difference. And these are typically at a lower cost for youthful group. Social. So actively encourage or sponsor a workplace activity that promote friendships and trust between peers. These could be sports or activity-based or craft-based or interest-based, like theatre clubs. Previous generations would have clubs that they belong to, that they attend, and pubs that they would go to just to pop in. And that would be their base of social interaction. However, Gen Z don't have this option and choose not to socialise in those environments, but instead in work. The view of bringing their whole self to work is so much more important to Generation Z than anyone else. Given the importance of purpose to this group, community-based volunteering could support the team building and improve fulfillment as well. Financial side and financial stresses. Well, financial stress is affecting every cohort. It's a given. But Generation Z will frequently be at the bottom of the pay scale based on their experience alone. But offering a financial well-being advice and solutions could help many of these through this difficult period and help build loyalty to the business in the longer term. So, conclusion. Generation Z are different, are set to become a key pillar in the UK's workforce. They have unique ideas and needs. They grew up with the internet and truly care about fairness. Despite being the most financially stressed group, though, Generation Z don't focus on money. Feeling valued, caring for well-being, confidence in the business and its ethos and flexibility really matter to these. Business need to understand Generation Z want their jobs to have meaning and align their values. To keep Gen Z workers happy, companies need to make sure everyone is treated fairly and that their overall well-being is supported. As Generation Z and older generations work together, the UK economy can really flourish. Understanding Gen Z is the key to the future prosperity of the business. It's important to remember that not everything is about them. And it may just be because they're young. Now is the time to take a step back and consider whether your culture, your workplace behaviours is reflective of where this generation wants to work. I will now open up to questions across there because I understand there's a lot of things to unpack there. Henry?
Perfect. Thank you very much, Joe. I personally, obviously, I fall into the Gen Z category, and I thought that was super useful and really informative into what we as a generation are looking for moving forward within our work. I thought you hit a lot of really, really good points. So, if anyone has any questions, feel free to put those in the chat now. Equally, if you're happy to, just unmute and ask away. So, with that in mind, does anyone have any questions? Any questions?
May I?
Yes, feel free.
I'm Teresa Dupay. Joe, thank you very much. That was very informative. Lots of facts there and figures there. So when you say Gen Z aren't money orientated, I guess they're still living at home with parents. Henry, I don't know whether you are, but you don't need to answer that if you don't want to. Because how do they support themselves? I mean, I feel we all need to be cared and valued in the workplace. And what would you say that the pay would be for somebody if you employed somebody Gen Z?
Well, I won't fall into the trap of going down the salary brackets itself, because of course every business is different, and there's salary brackets that you can go into salaries. As I said before, recruitment agencies are very good at going, this is your title, this is your location. So I suggest maybe looking on that basis. They do have a experience rated one as well available. Going back to where do they get their money? They get their money from their salaries, without a doubt, and they don't disvalue money as they just feel that maybe society won't give them the opportunity to step onto the property ladder, to have a significant investment itself, and they will have some sort of side hustle going along, and known full well that because of their parents who have worked considerably harder and have been, in some cases, been absent while they've been growing up, thus meaning their independency, they know that their parents' bank of mum and dad is available in the worst case scenarios, and that because of the fact that the interest rates are a lot better than the banks. So therefore, it's a situation where they will all quite happily have the influence on making sure that actually morally, am I in the right place? Am I being supported by my mental health if I need it? Am I going through my working career with a progression? Is everyone around me being fair? And thus meaning that, they haven't given up on the money side of things, but they feel that their responsibilities are slightly further down the road, and may well be in the 30s to 40s before they even move out of the parents' house.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect, thank you. We've got a question from Bill. So Bill, if you'd like to unmute and ask your question, feel free.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by workplace culture and the issue of emerging loneliness and isolation at work, the impact it has on productivity, staff turnover, and just the issue around whether a move to hybrid working has more of an impact on Gen Z or not, or more generally on loneliness and isolation at work.
Well, good question, Bill. So going back to one of the facts of what we said there, that Gen Z want to know that it's an option of hybrid. They want to know that they have the options before they go through a role itself. However, out of the 84% who said yes, only 38% actually would take up the option of that. They realise that there is an opportunity for socialising and interaction itself. And I guess the point being is that if you want them to come to office, it's no longer right for us to make it a mandatory for them to attend, but actually make it a social environment and an interactive environment where they feel at home, where they can interact with other people and realise actually that's their social environment. So therefore, those social clubs were really important. That stopped the isolation from other things, taking in consideration what's really important to them, and what their interests are. A quick survey is going to be really quick, one email across to what are your interests outside of work, and you'll find that Generation Z might not have that kind of list of what used to be stamp collecting, looking at spotting trains, going to the cinema, going to the pub, going clubbing, going. They'll have one or two really pinpoint ones, and then they'll have other things which will sit in the background, such as box sets and sit in and the isolation of socialization itself. So, Bill, I completely understand what your concerns of the isolation within the workplace, but my suggestion would be, if you feel that there's anything like that in the work culture what you have, then the question is, what are we encouraging people to come to the office for?
Yeah, I mean, I get that, Joe. But my concern is around, we put a lot of conversation around solutions around loneliness and isolation outside of work, but we spend a vast majority of our time working. And if companies are not and businesses are not aware of that or cognizant to it, then we miss that real kind of humanity of who our staff are, and their value added to the organisation or the business. I mean, often I'm not Gen Z, I'm old and miserable, but often in my career, I was advised, don't ask people what they do outside of work because it's none of your business. And in my career, in terms of, I'm not a human resource expert, but I am a human resource expert in terms of people. They are broader than simply the time they spend in work or the time they spend for work.
Yeah, I get it, Bill, and I get what you mean as well. That I mean, previous generations used to be told to leave your worries at the door before you walk into work, and now that's not the case, and nor should it be the case. People need to bring in the whole of themselves into work and actually be reflective of that, so that they can have a better support network itself. A good structured employee assistance program to make sure that they have the help what they need is important. And also having the ability to interact with the managers when they need to is also important as well. There are a lot of people, if you don't give them the voice, will go quiet forever. So consultancy steer groups, making sure that they're run by individuals who are not necessarily management or anything like that, are actually more important than ever before.
Yeah. Thank you, Joe. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Perfect. And I think Lara was having a couple of points as well. Lara, if you'd like to unmute and add your points to the conversation between Bill and Joe.
Oh, hi. Yes, apologies. I am going to have to leave in a moment. My point really was that actually people can feel lonely and isolated in the office as well. So it's how you make people feel as part of the team. Are they valued? Are they listened to? Are they missed? And if they feel that they are part of the team, they won't feel isolated wherever they work.
Perfect point. And that's one of my kind of considerations when putting these slides together. It was the fact that actually, what am I trying to establish? Well, just awareness, really, that people may think in a slightly different way just because of the time that they were born and brought up in itself. So exactly that. Now that this awareness, these slides around the Generation Z side of things, you won't be necessarily going around and labeling people, but it will be a situation you'll be able to go, oh, actually, they might want me to interact a bit more on a quick Teams message or a quick email. The biggest thing is often the interaction of making sure that you're just talking to people is really can be seen to be socializing. However, it can be very intimidating if people are not used to that kind of interaction as well. So believe it or not, people are quite happy to socialize via Teams by just sending a message across the office. That's still okay as well. But we need to not forget those people who feel isolated as well. You're right.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Joe. We probably have time for just about one more question. If anyone has another question, feel free to unmute. If not, we will end the session and move on with our day. But does anybody have any last questions? Any last thoughts? No. Perfect. No. Fantastic. Great. Well, I think that is it. Thank you, everyone, for attending our Business Bites session today. Thank you again to Joe from Towergate for hosting with us. I personally thought it was a really, really interesting session. And yeah, the recording will be made available by next week. So with that in mind, I hope you all have a great rest of your day and a good weekend as soon as it comes. And yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Everyone.
Thank you.